Let me read to you a passage from the 13th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 10 to 17. It's the Gospel for Thursday of the 16th week in Ordinary Time. St. Matthew writes, "The disciples came to Jesus and asked, 'Why do you speak to the people in parables?' He replied, 'The knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them. Whoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. This is why I speak to them in parables. Though seeing they do not see, though hearing they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears. They have closed their eyes. Otherwise they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. For I tell you the truth, many prophets and righteous men longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." That's from Matthew chapter 13, verses 10 to 17. In it our Lord speaks of seeing and hearing. Let me give an example. John Henry Newman was born on February the 21st, 1801, and at the age of 15 he enrolled in Trinity College, Oxford, beginning an involvement with Oxford University that would last for nearly 30 years. A little over a year after receiving his bachelor's degree in 1820, he was admitted as a Fellow of Oriel College. Following his ordination as a deacon in 1824 and then a priest in 1825, he became an Oriel tutor in 1826 and vicar of St. Mary's Church at Oxford in 1828. During 1826 there arrived on the scene of Oxford the unusual personage Joseph Blanco White, lived from 1775 to 1841, who was admitted as a Fellow of Oriel towards the end of that year. He and Newman quickly became friends, a friendship that was not destined to last when Newman's thoroughgoing Catholic positions emerged. The fact was that Blanco White hated the Catholic Church and had published extensively in England against the Church of Rome. Indeed, he was awarded his academic diploma by Oxford University precisely because of these publications and their perceived effectiveness. He himself was a Spaniard, though of Irish descent, and had been ordained a Catholic priest in Spain in 1800, the year prior to Newman's birth in London. Following his ordination, deep-seated religious doubts emerged, and he escaped to England during the Peninsular War and lived the remaining 31 years of his life, passing from virtual atheism to Anglicanism, during which he received Anglican orders, to Unitarianism. He died in denial of the Incarnation, the Atonement, the doctrine of the Trinitarian Godhead, and of course the divine institution of the Catholic Church. The one constant in his life from within a few years of his ordination in Spain was hatred for the Church in which he was raised and ordained. Newman and he were fast friends for the first few years of their period together at Oxford, but Blanco White was increasingly appalled as Newman's true colours emerged, which included his championship of orthodox dogma and the divine foundation of the Church. For his part, Newman came to see the tragedy of Blanco White's life. He was sincere, Newman judged, but profoundly blind to the truth, and this blindness was rooted in a spiritual and moral decay. In a spiritual and religious sense, Blanco White's tragedy was total. He was born into a devout Spanish Catholic environment, was baptized, and he lost everything. Nothing is impossible for God, as our Lord said to his disciples, but a person is playing with fire if he knowingly turns his back on God and his revelation. He may be rendering himself impervious to the intervention of God's sovereign grace. This brings us to our gospel today that I read earlier, in which our Lord, commenting on his use of parables in speaking to the people, warns of the consequences of spiritual blindness. The spiritual blindness of which our Lord speaks is not a mere accident of personal limitation. This conceivably is possible. Our Lord is speaking of what is obscurely self-inflicted. As we heard, though seeing, they do not see, though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. You will be ever hearing, but never understanding. You will be ever seeing, but never perceiving. Because of this blindness, this deafness, this incomprehension, our Lord does not speak directly to them. They could not understand, and we might add, perhaps their guilt would increase were our Lord to speak more plainly. Thus he spoke to them in parables. They will always be hearing, but never understanding, always seeing, but never perceiving. But what is especially important is the reason our Lord gives, citing the prophecy of Isaiah for their blindness. For this people's heart has become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they have closed their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes, hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I would heal them. Matthew chapter 13, verse 10 to 17. In their heart of hearts, they do not want to hear, nor to see, because this means listening to the divine demand to change, and this they do not want to do. Thus have their hearts become hardened, calloused. Their will is opposed to the divine will, and perhaps they are not very aware of this moral position they have gradually adopted in the hidden chambers of their souls. Gradually the divine presence in their consciences has departed, and all that remains is the proud self refusing the voice of God. Blessed John Henry Newman, beatified by Pope Benedict in September 2010, went on to write and speak of the importance of the right moral ethos in a person, if that person is ever to arrive at the truth, religious truth. There have to be the right starting points, the right first principles, the right fundamental attitudes, if a person is ever to see and hear aright in respect to the things of God. If those fundamental premises are inimical to the voice and will of God, what can be done? Only God can change them, and nothing is impossible to God. But how serious a matter it is. And our Lord's words in today's gospel are a tremendous warning from on high about it.